Okay, it's November 20th. We'll start the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee. Courtesy of the floor.
Mont McClure next door for a few more weeks. Tonight, you are going to see our commitment to evidence-based governing in Northampton County, at least over the last 8 years. We have invested $25 million in farmland preservation, open space, and environmentally sensitive preservation. Today, you're going to see evidence of the benefits of that direct public investment. So this, remember, we're investing the people's money, $25 million of it, which Brian can tell you enables us to leverage tens of millions more of monies so that we can do the preservation that we're up to 23 county parks now. I mean, it's just an amazing accomplishment. And so you're about to hear all of the economic benefits that are derived from what we've done. They've been able to put a number on the health benefits that we've derived from what we've done. It's remarkable, the numbers that you're about to see that they've been able to put on some of the activities that we have engaged in, and I'm so proud of. And, you know, I often say our future is green. Well, right now is green, and you're about to hear that. And I just want to thank ESI, the consultants you're about to meet and hear from for all of the work that they've done on this. I want to thank Michael Baker International, and I want to thank that extensive list of people in the report that you'll see who served on the committee to do this work. It's amazing, and I couldn't be more proud to have scientifically verified proof that our $25 million green investment over the last 8 years worked. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll hear a presentation on the Return on Environment report.
Good evening. I just want to give a little background. So our Return on Environment Economic Impact, we first started this back about 10 years ago. 2013, 2014 was the Lehigh Valley-wide economic impact analysis. And from that, we had our Livable Landscapes plan that we've used for the past decade. And I know I've mentioned it, that we're going to be starting our Livable Landscapes update next year. We wanted to find this data out to help generate the next 10 years of planning parks, preserves, and things like that. So what you'll see tonight is amazing numbers, once again, that show what we're doing, preserving land, building out the outdoor recreation economy, is working, and it's providing detailed numbers for such as flooding aspects, such as pollination, things that we would have to put a lot more money towards for infrastructure-wise that we can benefit from by preserving land and doing environmental restoration. So I'd like to turn it over to Rebecca DeJoseph with eConsult Group and Samantha McLean from Michael Baker. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Brian, for that introduction. My name is Samantha McLean. I'm a senior community planner with Michael Baker International, and I'm joined by my colleague.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Garvin DeJoseph. I'm Senior Vice President and Principal of eConsult Solutions in Philadelphia.
Yes, so we partnered on this project for a couple of reasons. eConsult brings a lot of economic value analysis experience, and then Michael Baker, we're based in Allentown. We're a semi-local firm, and we bring a lot of context, with the local environment and also engagement. So tonight we're going to walk you through the purpose and process that we took to come up with this study, go over some of the findings from the context chapters that set kind of understanding and foundation around open space consumers, the state of the environment, and trends that we're seeing. And then the real fun part, Becky will share the economic value analysis and the numbers that came out of that study. And then, of course, leaving room for any questions and discussion.
So first, the purpose of the study. This is in part an update from the 2014 Lehigh Valley Return on Environment, which our firm had done. It was one of the first studies of its kind. It's now 10 years old, but it is aligned, and the majority of the data and methods we ensured aligned with that study so that it is really a true update. However, there were additions since that time. We have in the bolded on the right, you'll see that we have additional types of valuation because since that project back in 2014, we've done more and more types of valuation, and there's more benefits to the environment that I think we all know, but it is hard to sometimes quantify them. And you'll see there on the right agricultural value, public and mental health benefits, as well as outdoor recreation economic impact, which, as you all know, within the state of Pennsylvania has been a real driving factor, a real driving force at the state level to understand and quantify really what outdoor recreation means to our state, to the Commonwealth.
Great. So the process that we undertook for this project was 8 months. So we started back in April, and we're here before you today in November. So the first half of the process, from about April to through the summer, was really all about kind of setting kind of an understanding of the existing conditions, and then doing a lot of outreach and engagement. So you'll see kind of on the top of the slide our study components. So we looked into, and we'll expand upon this in a little bit, kind of how people are using open space in Northampton County, what the state of the environment is right now in terms of the space that you have, and then, of course, complementing that data with the engagement and feedback from residents and visitors in Northampton County through a series of engagement efforts, including a survey, pop-up events, and interviews with local stakeholders. Throughout this process, as you can see in the middle, we did meet with a study committee of all those individuals and organizations noted in the report. We met with them 4 times throughout the process, and they really were partners throughout the process, providing both feedback on the deliverables that we created, but also providing local insight and making sure it was grounded and that we didn't have any gaps. So on the next slide, just once, oh, sorry, you still had it. So I do just also, I know this was said earlier, but do just want to thank all of the organizations that participated in the study committee. You know, some of them also hosted our meetings, which we're really grateful about, and helped get the word out about the survey. So I know that these are partners that the county works with now, but they are, you know, poised to be continued partners in this effort going forward, and we're grateful for their time and effort. So in terms of the engagement, something that was really important for us was we know that data can tell you a lot, as Becky will get into. It's really important, but we also need to understand kind of how local residents are using the space, and then some of that feedback and local experience was then channeled into ESI's analysis. So to reach individuals, we had a survey that asked questions about how are you using open space, how long do you use open space for, what kinds of activities, what do you spend when you go, or what do you spend on supplies to use different recreation areas, and then what are the perceived benefits of open space on people's health, mental health, et cetera. The survey was open from May to July. We received 316 responses, and we helped get the word out about the survey through an outreach toolkit with graphics and social media posts that the county and our partners used to share information out. And then we also met people where they are. So we were at 2 pop-up events, both in June, the Lehigh River Sojourn, Greenways Jamboree, and then the Easton Farmers Market, where we got a lot of great engagement. And people were very excited about it, and I think it bodes well for the Livable Landscapes update that will be kicking off shortly. People will certainly want to be involved. So in terms of setting the context for the economic value analysis, we wanted to look at both how people use the space and then what open space exists currently. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail because we want to get to the numbers, but I do want to just provide a brief overview of what you can expect to see in the report. So the Open Space Consumers chapter asked, who lives here? How has that changed since 2014? how has the population changed in the last 10 years, but also how will it continue to change? What are some of the consumer behaviors that we're seeing, and how people use areas? So, we're learning, and I'm sure you are aware, that the population in the county is growing. It's also aging. So in 2010, kind of shortly before the last Return on Environment report, the median age was just over 40 years old, 40.9. In 2020, it was 42.6, and it's anticipated to grow. So, understanding how an aging population uses open space is certainly going to be important for the county moving forward. While population is growing, we are seeing, though, that households' size is decreasing. So what does that mean in terms of households that might not have as many children or might look different from households in the past? So we kind of compiled all this information to kind of set the standard, and I think actually, besides providing a good foundation for this report, it's going to be really helpful information for the Livable Landscapes update as well. We also looked at trends across the state and the nation, and just like you were seeing in Northampton County, we are seeing an increase in the number of people partaking in recreation activities across the state and in the country. So there was a national report in 2023 that found that just within a year of their study that there was an increase in 4% of people that were using recreation areas. So this is a demand that's not slowing down, essentially, in short. The next thing that we wanted to look at was what open space currently exists and what kind of the status and the quality of that space was. So we know that as population grows, so does kind of the pressure for development and places to provide services and housing for the population. And so that requires kind of understanding a balance between development and conservation. So this chapter goes into great detail about air quality, water quality, land cover and habitat, how that's changed since 2014, your wildlife, and then how the built environment kind of interacts with the natural environment. And basically, as Becky will talk about, her analysis is based on the environment and open space that you have today. So this is kind of your baseline. This is what you have today, and to achieve the benefits that she's going to talk about, you need to maintain what's there now, if not, increase it potentially in the future. So that's what this chapter speaks to. The next chapter kind of is the so what of the first two chapters. So looking at kind of top takeaways and trends to consider as you are looking at potential opportunities for the future. So looking at open space trends in terms of how it's being used. So understanding, like I said, demographic changes are going to increase competition for land and open space. Outdoor recreation has increased post-pandemic. There's a need for increased access and improved facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, these takeaways are considerations for the county in terms of planning and future conservation and recreation areas moving forward. We also provided kind of a list of local, state, and federal initiatives around recreation and environmental planning that the county can explore as they continue on these efforts. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Becky to get to the real exciting stuff.
Thanks, Samantha. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get into, now that we kind of understand the lay of the land, so to speak, what does this mean? What does the value mean for the county? And we do this, as mentioned earlier, in a variety of different ways. If you look at the 6 different ways that we look at the return on environment, you can think of it from the fact of it being present and then usage. So for the first 2 that I'm going to talk about, we have natural system services and property value impact, both of which were in the 2014 report. And this is just that if you are close To open space, there's value, and the presence of open space gives value. We then also added the agricultural value, which is that the preserved farmland is not just preserved, some of it is used, some of it is not utilized currently, but agriculture is a big portion of the Northampton County economy. So what does that look like? In our 4th, 5th, and 6th categories, we really look at the usage. So when you're actually using open space, if you're on a trail, if you're at a park, we know that the public gets public physical health benefits as well as mental health benefits. And then while they're doing those activities, it also generates additional monetary spending. We look at this in 2 ways, which we'll talk about, both on the production side that supports businesses and the consumption side. So those 2 things are kind of the 2 ways that we look at GDP. So it's the 2 ways that we look at the economic impact to try to assess that. So the first one that we're going to look at is the environmental services, which you do have on your executive summary. In total, we find that the environmental benefits in Northampton County is about $435 million in value a year. And the difference between the environmental service benefits modeling that we do is that it's not generating that money, but it's a replacement value. So if these open spaces were not there, that would mean there would be a reduction in air quality, there would be a reduction in water quality, water supply, pollination, all of which has a cost to replace. So if the county did not have these services provided by these natural service systems, then there would have to be additional costs. So we can think about that as the replacement cost or the cost mitigated by the natural service systems. And one of the big ones also is $2.5 billion in carbon from the tree cover over a lifetime. Again, it's very hard to understand the value of a tree. It's very valuable, but over the lifetime of the tree cover, it's about $2.5 billion in what would have to be mitigated for climate costs. So that is our first value, $435 million in cost reduction because of the services. On our next slide, which is all about the presence again, we know and we have had several different studies that have looked into the economic impact of open space on property value. You can imagine that if you are near open space as an amenity, it will give your property a little bit more value. Now this is not kind of in a vacuum. If you are in New York City and you are right next to the park, you are going to have a much higher premium for the closeness to that because it is much more scarce. For this report, we used a value of 3.6%, which is a very modest percentage. And understanding that there are about 60,000 homes within Northampton County that are within a quarter mile of open space, what this means is that it generates approximately $776 million of additional value for those properties adjacent or within a quarter mile of open space, which translates to about $12,800 in property value for each of those residences that are close to open space. Next, we get into our agricultural value. What we are looking at here is the $38.3 million in direct annual output. And this is direct annual output from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for Northampton County. So we can see that the majority of the farming is within crops, about 30.5, and the rest is in livestock and poultry. But what we do with economic impact modeling is we understand that when you spend a dollar anywhere in any industry, there are linkages. There are inter-industry linkages that recirculate throughout the economy. So when we think about the supply chain of the farms buying feed and buying tractors and other things that they need for the farm, that is going to support additional businesses within Northampton County. At the same time, when those farm workers go and spend money in the county, we call that induced impact. So together, we have the direct impact of about $38 million, but that in total aggregate equates to about 43,700,000 jobs supported from the agricultural industry. Next, we are getting into public health. We had a survey that we surveyed trail users and open space users within Northampton County. And what we found was that of the 254,000 approximate adults within Northampton County, roughly 155,000 are regular open space users, parks, trails, outdoor recreation. In order to understand how many of these individuals we could reasonably state were receiving what the Medicaid and Medicare benefits of physical health, meeting the CDC standards, we had to understand how many are using it with two categorizations. That is at least 150 minutes of moderate to strenuous activity. So you'll see within the flow chart here, we asked those within the survey how often you are using it. So if you are using it primarily for exercise every day for at least 30 minutes, you are counted as receiving those benefits due to the trail. If you are using it weekly for exercise, and that exercise you consider to be moderate or strenuous, and you're doing it for at least 2 times a day for 90 minutes, then you would be considered to receive the benefit. The CDC says that the benefit of this 150 minutes of moderate to strenuous activity per week equates to a healthcare cost savings of about $1,200 per capita for any individual that is keeping themselves healthy. So if we take those 12,700 individuals, multiply it by that $1,200 savings per year, in the county we can reasonably say that about 14.4 million in physical health savings. Now again, all of our estimates we do keep on the conservative side. We have to make sure that we really understand that if you're only using it for 2 times, you're going for a run, you're still getting benefits, but these are just the individuals that are using it so often that we can say that it's in part due to the open space. We do the same thing with our mental health benefits. Mental health benefits gets a little tricky. We don't ever want to say that it's, that mental health is not something that you should invest in, and that if you are, out in the environment that you might not have to invest in medical care. We do not want to say that. So we use that caveat that this is a little bit of a tricky one. But what we, through the survey and through some studies, a recent study found that spending roughly 120 minutes in nature was associated with an odds ratio of somebody feeling less anxious, less anxiety, of 23%. It gets greatly lower under that 120-minute mark. So we used the same survey, and we got it down to the number of individuals in Northampton County that we would reasonably, based on national estimates, believed to suffer with mood disorders and anxiety. And then based on the survey, we understood that about 3,800 individuals of the 155,000 regular users are using it at least 120 minutes per week for the purposes explicitly stated of mental health. It makes them feel better. So if we take all of those people, it's about 17,000 saying that they are using it for those purposes, and we cut down to assuming about 11% of them also have anxiety. Then we can get to 38,000 residents with the cost of about $2,000 per resident for mental health expenditures for anxiety, which gets us to a 1.5 million in mental health care savings. Now, again, that's a very, very low estimate. This was one of the biggest with our steering committees. One of the biggest things, it has to be bigger. It definitely, we would assume that it would be bigger, but we want it to be as conservative as possible, not to overstate any impacts. And our last piece, but a very important piece, is the outdoor recreation economy. So the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis has a outdoor recreation satellite account, and they estimate the size of each state's outdoor recreation. So if you think about Hawaii has a very high outdoor recreation, about 8% of GDP. Other states like Colorado and Montana, also very high. In the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it's about 1.9% of GDP. If we use that same just 1.9% of GDP, assuming that Northampton County is the same as Pennsylvania, we get to about $401 million in GDP. However, if we take it a little bit more detailed and we look into the sector breakdown that was provided by the state, we get to 436, about 2.1% of GDP. This is one that we are hoping the BEA will be able to do on a county basis, but we reached out to them, and it is a very long, laborious process to get to those actual numbers, so this is very much an estimate. And again, this is from the production side, so this is looking at the businesses that are producing goods and services that can be used and utilized for outdoor recreation. So that's the definition from the production side. On the other side of the same coin is the consumption approach. And using the same survey, we asked our daily, weekly, and monthly users, we see that 155,000 number, we estimated the number of total trips. We then asked those daily, weekly, and monthly users, how often do you spend while you are before or after or during the time that you're on a trail or you are at a park? And then we asked them, how much do you spend? So we have the categories of always spend, sometimes spend, never spend. We have that broken out by the number of spending trips, and we get, of those, about 16 million trips to open space, about 5 million would be classified as spending for an average of 162 million in spend. In addition to the spending on trips, you also have hard goods. Hard goods are considered bikes, helmets, backpacks. These are the types of goods that are really looked at in the production side of things. We also asked, on average, how much do you spend on these goods for utilization of open space? And we see that that number is about 44 million. So together, those two pieces, the soft goods and the hard goods together, come to about $211 million of spend, of which some of that is retail. It's going to leak outside of Northampton County, so we get the direct local spending is 189.6 million. Putting that through our same in-plan input-output modeling to understand the multiplicative effect within the county gets us to a total economic impact of 263 million, supporting nearly 2,000 jobs within the county. That is how we went about valuing the economic value of open space. We are happy, Samantha and I, to take any questions that you may have on any of the methodologies or any of the context chapters.
How many other counties have you done this with throughout the Commonwealth?
So we have done the return on environment in Mercer County, New Jersey, Chester County, and somebody else did Montgomery County.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
The reason why I ask is because it would be interesting, of course, if all 67 counties were to embark on this to see what the overall economic impacts would be for the entire Commonwealth. And I guess what I'm leading to, is there that initiative? I probably should know this, and I'm imagining there probably is, but is there that statewide based initiative that could give us a better picture of how this is a positive economic impact for the entire state?
Yes, so there is, I know that Elevate, which is one that we've been looking at, Elevate PA. There is also there was just a statewide outdoor recreation economy report that was the statewide, that was done by our friends at John Stover and Associates. The difference between the return on environment versus the outdoor recreation economy is that, from my understanding, those studies are not looking at the broader implications of physical, mental health, the agricultural piece, or the natural system services. So those are really just focused on that user spend and the hard goods spend. So it definitely is something that we keep seeing more activity, particularly in Pennsylvania, around, but I don't know that it's as comprehensive as the return on environment studies we've done. Yeah.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, as we're progressing in the future, I think it's important that the entire state has a better handle on these return of investments.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when I talk to my family about this, they're like, "You actually have to do a study on that? Like, we all know that there's benefits," and it's like, yeah, but if it's between two things, you need to understand the relative size and the relative importance. So.
Yeah. Well, the study went on for 8 months, correct? It was a total of 8 months, and I'm also wondering too, and maybe I can just email you about this, but since you're here, how often does the modeling change over time? Because as we progress, things change, variables change, I would imagine. So how often does the actual modeling change? And I know, Brian, you had mentioned, this is going to help us for like 10 years down the road. And I'm assuming 10 years down the road, the modeling's probably going to be a little bit different than what this is. Maybe I'm mistaken, but
So
it's-
it depends on, we have within here 8 different models over 6 areas. The ones that have basically been more or less the same is the Natural System Services modeling. The reason for that is that the original study from 2006 that has then been updated is from Costanza, and this it was a research paper that took 2 years to really dig into the actual per acre value of an ecosystem. So when we're looking at, to be clear, with the environmental piece, that is all acres. So we're looking at the whole land cover of Northampton County, and of course, like wetlands and forests, those are going to have the highest impact. They have the highest natural service. But then we also can see that like permeable land or farmland also has higher. So that basis for how that kind of valuation is, that's rooted in the same study that has been repeated over time to get those valuations. Yeah, but then things like the in-plan input-output model, those models change yearly. It's still the same, like this guy, Leon Teef, discovered it in 1930. So it's the same model, but it is based on updated numbers.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. This is
Sure. Yeah.
fantastic. It was a ton of great information.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Any other questions? Well, thank you, guys.
That we will adjourn.
Thank you.